There's a famous American author named Napoleon Hill, one of the founding figures of the entire success literature industry. In 1938, at the age of 55, he finished a book so controversial that his family and friends begged him not to publish it. The book stayed hidden for decades, and only finally came out in 2011, 41 years after Hill's death. The book was called Outwitting the Devil. In it, Hill imagines an interview with the devil. He asks, "How exactly do you control humanity?" The devil answers, "It's easy. I don't need complicated conspiracies. I only need people to stay in one state, drifting. Drifting means living without a clear direction. Or even if you have goals, you lack a concrete plan, so you simply float along with circumstances. Other people, random events, and social expectations end up making your decisions for you. You become like a log drifting downstream." Hill, speaking through the devil, claims that 98% of people spend their entire lives in this drifting state. And honestly, isn't that most of us? You spend the whole day busy. You reply to messages, clear emails, attend meetings, fill out spreadsheets, maybe scroll short videos for 2 hours. Then at night you suddenly wonder, what did I actually do today? At the micro level, none of your actions were technically wrong. But at the macro level, you have almost no control over your own trajectory. You're not lazy, you're not doing nothing. But you're still drifting. Sometimes you procrastinate, not because you're lazy, but because you don't know exactly what to do first, what matters most, or what done even looks like. Sometimes you want to make a bold move, but you fear criticism, so you retreat back into routine. Hill called this a hypnotic rhythm. Your stable, automated life slowly hypnotizes you until you become fixed into a certain identity. This is just who I am. That is the default setting of modern life. Most people unconsciously surrender two forms of personal sovereignty to the outside world: the right to define reality, and the trigger for action. So today, I want to introduce a thinking tool that can wake you up from that default setting. It's called WOOP, W-O-O-P. There's a quote often attributed to Elon Musk: "I don't believe in lack of execution." Most execution problems are actually problems of insufficient precision. Whether he truly said it or not, the idea is correct. WOOP is a system for turning vague wishes into executable behavior. The framework was developed by psychologist Gabrielle Ettingen. WOOP stands for Wish, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan. Simple. But incredibly powerful. First, wish. What exactly do you want? Not "I want a better life." That's meaningless, be precise. Second, outcome. If you succeed, what will actually improve? What would it feel like? What changes emotionally, physically, socially? Third, obstacle. And this is the crucial one. What is the internal obstacle stopping you? Not the economy, not your boss, not society. Your own reaction pattern. Your fear, your avoidance, your emotional reflex. Finally, plan. When that obstacle appears, what exactly will you do? Not motivation, not inspiration. A concrete action. An if-then script. For example, wish, lose 10 pounds this month. Outcome, healthier body, better energy, more confidence. Obstacle, whenever I see delicious food at night, I overeat. Plan, if it's nighttime and I want snacks, then I brush my teeth immediately. That's WOOP. It converts desire into behavioral code. At first glance, WOOP sounds like ordinary positive psychology. Like believe in your dreams. But actually, WOOP is almost the opposite. Traditional self-help culture tells people to fantasize about success. Imagine the perfect future. Picture yourself winning. And yes, fantasies feel good. Research shows that when people vividly imagine success, their blood pressure drops and their body relaxes. But that relaxation can become a problem, because the brain partially interprets fantasy as achievement. Psychologically, you already got the reward. So your energy to pursue the goal actually decreases. WOOP corrects this mistake through something called mental contrasting. You imagine the desired future, and then immediately force yourself to confront reality. What's the real obstacle? What's going to stop you? Can this goal genuinely be achieved? If the obstacle is overwhelming and unrealistic, WOOP actually encourages you to let the goal go gracefully instead of destroying yourself chasing something impossible. But if the goal is achievable, the contrast between reality and possibility creates psychological tension, and that tension mobilizes action. The second major component of WOOP comes from psychologist Peter Gallwitzer, who introduced the idea of implementation intentions. The structure is simple: if X happens, then I will do Y. If I feel the urge to check my phone, then I lock it in a drawer. If I become angry, then I take 3 deep breaths before speaking. If I feel nervous during a meeting, then I say one prepared sentence immediately. This matters because drifting people operate like this: situation appears, leads to random emotional reaction. WOOP changes the sequence: situation appears, leads to execute preloaded response. You are essentially programming your own brain. The obstacle becomes the trigger for action. What's fascinating is how broadly WOOP has been used. Researchers have used it to improve attendance and grades among students in low-income communities. They've used it to help middle-aged women exercise more consistently. They've used it with medical residents to improve study behavior. One of the most moving examples involves caregivers of dementia patients. Imagine caring for a loved one with dementia. Sometimes they repeat the same question 10 times. Sometimes they forget who you are. Sometimes they suddenly become angry. In that situation, empty positivity is useless. You need realism. One caregiver used WOOP like this: wish, I want to stay patient this week. Outcome, we preserve dignity and emotional connection, and I don't spiral into guilt afterward. Obstacle, when he repeats the same question over and over, I feel myself about to explode. Plan, if he repeats the question again, then I remind myself, this is the illness speaking, not him, and I hold his hand. Studies showed that caregivers using WOOP experienced lower stress, improved quality of life, and reduced depressive symptoms. WOOP can help you attack problems, but it can also protect your peace. Let's look at 2 everyday applications. First, controlling spending. Wish, save 20% of my income this month. Outcome, financial security and a calmer future. Obstacle, stress triggers impulsive shopping. Plan, if I suddenly want to buy something online because I'm stressed, then I leave it in the cart for 24 hours and take a walk instead. Notice something important: you don't lack financial knowledge. You lack a replacement behavior. Second example, career ambition. Wish, speak up during the quarterly meeting. Outcome, visibility, trust, and bigger opportunities. Obstacle, fear of embarrassment. Plan, if my heart starts racing and I want to stay silent, then I immediately say, let me summarize this in 30 seconds, and read my prepared first point. You don't need to eliminate fear. You only need to transform fear into an action trigger. WOOP doesn't demand that you become a different person overnight. It only asks you not to drift in that one critical moment. Over time, those moments compound into habits. And habits become identity. There's one more reason WOOP matters: mental clarity. Psychologists describe something called the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks remain mentally active. They linger in the background of consciousness, consuming cognitive resources. This is also related to something called attention residue. That's why you can spend an entire evening resting and still feel mentally exhausted. Your brain is running too many open loops. But once you WOOP a problem, once you define the obstacle and pre-program the response, your brain partially treats the issue as resolved. It no longer needs to constantly remind you. You stop carrying everything manually in working memory. You become calmer. Like still water. You no longer need to obsessively remember what to do. When the situation appears, the action automatically follows. And when the situation is absent, you are finally free to fully experience the present moment. Your brain is meant for thinking. Not for endlessly keeping track of unfinished emotional tabs. That is what it feels like to wake up from drifting. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.